Hey guys, I'm here with Chef Willie. Say hi, Chef.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
We're here today to talk about our caramelized onion recipe. Look how dark and rich, and if you could taste them, how sweet these onions are. Oh, it's just great. This is one of the stars that makes our caramelized onion pizza recipe such a fan favorite here. But let's start at the beginning. It takes a few hours to get to that point. We start by chopping up a bunch of onions. No need to make a fancy chop out of them. You cut them in half or quarters. They're going to be stirred so many times anyway that you don't really have to do a lot of prep or processing with them. Now, the most important thing is that we start with a sweet onion. We like to use the Vidalia onions this time of year,
Right.
but technically, onions can only be called Vidalia onion if they're from Vidalia, Georgia, and they also have to be picked a certain time of the year, right, Chef?
They can only be harvested between the end of May and the end of July in order to be called Vidalia onions. Outside of that, they're called sweet onions.
Right. And we get sweet onions from other regions, but make sure you're not buying a Spanish onion or a yellow onion or, God forbid, a red onion. It just doesn't work with this recipe. So you always want to make sure you're starting with the right thing. Then we just take them and we put them in a pot, and we fill the pot with water and just about a cup of olive oil to start with. We're going to gradually add the olive oil as we go. But we actually cover the onions completely with water, and then we begin to boil them down. Now, it might seem, since we're trying to caramelize these, which means we're boiling them off and we're getting rid of the water. You know, why are we adding water when we're really trying to boil them off and get rid of the water? Well, surprisingly, it actually goes about twice as fast if you add water up front. Otherwise, what happens is the outside of the onions burn long before you're evaporating any of the water that's locked on the inside of the structure of the onion. So that doesn't work. You also have to sort of stand over it all the time and constantly stir, stir, stir. By adding a lot of water up front, boiling them down, you're making sure they're not going to burn. You're giving plenty of time for the internal structure to break down. And this way you can just put the heat on its highest setting and let it go. So we probably stir it. How often do we stir it, Willie?
When we first start them out, we go at it about every 20 minutes with the heat as high as it can go. And then after we've gotten all the onions coated and all the heat that's going into it distributed evenly, we'll come back every half hour.
Right. Now, you say coated, you're talking about coated with the olive oil, right?
Coated with the olive oil and water that's in there.
And water. Now, we're not adding any salt. There's no other ingredients. It's just oil and onions and water, and that's it.
That's it.
Now, we're using a 40-pound batch here. This is about a 40-pound batch of onions we started with. And we put them in this big rondo. If you have a steam jacketed kettle, it probably goes even better. So if you've got one of those, use it. Okay, we're at the next stage here of this, and you can see that it's begun to turn a little bit brown. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera here with all the smoke. In fact, I'm just going to turn down the heat just for a second, just so we can get a little less smoke and it'll go better on the video camera. Can you see it's browning a little bit at the bottom? That might seem like it's a problem, but if you keep working it and pressing it, that will all come off and go back into the onions, right?
Right, and if you can see right in the middle, it's starting to get darker already as soon as I hit it with the rubber spatula.
So in other words, it was darker underneath a minute ago. Now it's darker on top just because you're stirring that dark in, right?
And as you keep on working it, eventually you're going to clean off that dark stuff on the bottom of the pan, and all that color and caramelization will transfer on to the onion.
Okay. So yes, pull it back. Let's see if we can see that a little. You can see that big dark patch there. Got it. Okay, let's work it for a second. Let's see that happen if that's possible. So you're working it. It's almost like you're deglazing it in its own juice.
Correct.
Now I've turned the heat off here only because I'm trying to get the steam to go a little lower for the video camera, although it's not really stopped steaming.
Already you can tell the color has changed.
Yeah, you can see really the difference in the color, especially if you look at the edge. You can see that the edges are still yellow.
Now you can see already that we're starting to clean up that bottom part, especially on this edge where it was really, really dark.
Okay, about another 15-20 minutes has passed, and we're continuing to stir. You can see it's definitely getting darker and darker and darker. And there's even more brown at the bottom now than there was before.
Right, we've picked up a lot more color on the bottom of this pan.
We're getting to the point now where we're starting to drop the temp a little bit on the heat, right? We're trying to not heat it as quickly anymore.
Right, definitely. This is the second go around. The onions have change dramatically in color. So we're definitely going to drop the temperature on the fire. We'll take it to a low setting, and we'll pick up the rest of this color on the bottom of the pan by just basically doing the same thing, moving that rubber spatula on the bottom surface of the pan.
Got it. Okay. All right. We'll come back in a little bit. Okay, they're just continuing. Let's keep going. You can see it's just a gradual process. There's just no rush in it.
And all we're doing, we're picking up that color from the bottom of the pan. Every time, that's the goal, every time we move these onions around. Make sure that color from the pan, your pan stays clean on the bottom, and you're picking up that caramelization from the bottom of the pan.
Great. Thanks, Willie.
Well.
Okay, so they're continuing to cook. You see they're gradually getting browner and browner. And how much oil would you say you've added at this point, Willie?
I would say I've definitely added about 3 cups of oil thus far.
Okay. Got it. We continue to stir. We continue to scrape up that brown from the bottom. And we're just going to keep going. We'll update you every once in a while. A few hours later, the onions look like this. They look awesome. Now, actually, though, I just tasted these. They still need a little bit more. They still need a little bit more time. They look really dark, but if you don't taste them, you're never going to know. You can't go by color alone. Sometimes, like during the summertime, the onions are so sweet that they actually could be pretty light and still be very sweet. Other times, during the winter especially, the onions don't come as naturally sweet, and you have to make them even darker. So you can't go on color alone. You have to taste, right?
Yeah, correct.
Now, how much olive oil would you say we add in total? We add it gradually, a little at a time?
I would say a full quart, about 4 cups.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me, too. Now, the great thing about these onions is they really last a long, long, long time. It's not like our other stuff that's got to be prepared fresh. These are almost a marmalade or a jam at this point. These will last pretty much indefinitely. Certainly a month or 2.
Yeah, ideally we like to use week-old onions. We prep about a week in advance. The longer they sit, the more intensified the flavor gets.
Right. So this is a great task to do when you don't have a lot else going on. If there's any downtime, I think I'll chop some onions now, You're always looking for something to do. That's one of the things we say around the house. You can always chop. Someone's standing around. You can always chop onions. You can always chop onions. You can always stir onions because these take a long, long time. So this is about 4 hours in right now, Will?
Yes, 4 hours.
4 hours in. Okay, great. Anything else?
No, that's it.
That's it. Just watch them, taste them, buy the right onion, add a little olive oil, stir them around. Should be great.
Yep, thanks.
Thanks, guys.